Hello students, in this video I will show you how to construct a grouped frequency distribution table. So I have question number 7 from homework set number 2, and the question gives you a set of data. We want to construct a grouped frequency distribution table, or GFDT. So the question is suggesting that we build 10 classes. This is an optional, but for the sake of restricting things here in your homework sets, we suggest that you build 10 classes, as you can see here, and we want to create a nice class width. To find the class width, we're going to use the formula to find in the class width, that is the difference between the maximum and minimum divided by the number of classes. So first we will need to find the minimum from the data and the maximum from the data, and we want to determine the class width. So let me show you how to do that. So the first thing that I want to do is just to write down here to remind myself that I need 10 classes. So now I wrote down here the number of classes that I need because it was specified in the question itself. And as you can see that I copied the data and I pasted it into an Excel sheet. That is sometimes doable, sometimes it's not doable. It depends on the coding of the question. So try to do that to save yourself some time. Now, I'm going to compute the minimum and maximum. To compute the minimum, I'm going to click on the cell in front of the word min, which is I wrote to remind myself again to calculate the minimum. Again, to calculate, we will need the equal sign, and then we will use the function min and double click on it, and then we will want to find the minimum of this data. So I'm going to select all of the data and click enter. So my minimum is 319. Now the maximum is similar, so I'm going to use the function max and then select all of the data and then click enter. Now my maximum is 798. To find the class width is basically the difference between the maximum and minimum divided by the number of classes. So this is equal to, and I'm going to open parentheses because if I don't open parentheses, then Excel is going only to divide the minimum by 10 and then add the maximum to that. It doesn't understand that it has to do the subtraction operation first and then the division operation next. But if I surround that with parentheses, then it's going to follow PEMDAS and it's going to do what's inside the parentheses first and then divide last, which is what I want. So maximum, I'm going to click on the maximum cell, minus minimum, I'm going to click on in the cell that has the minimum number, and then close the parentheses and divide everything by the number of classes, which is 10. Now I see that the class width is 47.9. I'm going to round it up to a nice class width. The nicest class width that is closer to this number is 50. I always try to select multiple of 10s or multiples of 5s. Since 47 is bigger than 45, then when you round it up, it's going to round up to 50. If it was like 43.1, I would have rounded that up to 45. But in this case, it is bigger than 45. So I'm going to round that up to 50. Next, I will need to find the lower class limit. The lower class limit is a number that is less than the minimum, but at the same time, it's a multiple of the class width. And that is a good rule to begin a lower class limit or find a lower class limit. So a number that is less than the minimum and a little bit less than the minimum and with a class width of 50 is basically 300. So I'm going to put 300 here as the lower class limit. To find the upper class limit, we will need to find the lower class limit of the second class. So after finding the lower class limit for the first class, you go ahead and add the class width to that to find the lower class limit for the second class. So that is equal to 300. I'm going to click on the 300 plus 50. And that is 350. To find the upper class limit of the first class, after you find the lower class limit of the second class, you basically take the lower class limit of the second class and subtract 1 from that. So you're going to say that is equal to this number 350 minus 1. And the reason I'm clicking on cells here is because I want to make this operation automatic. So if I take this formula and copy it down, notice what's going to happen. The numbers are going to be computed automatically for myself. So that is very convenient. And again, I can do the same here. So if I do that, it's going to work. Notice if I drag it one more, it's not going to be defined because this cell is empty. So it is considering that cell is equal to 0. 0 minus 1 is -1. I need 10 classes, so let me count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I don't need the rest of them, but I need this number to compute the upper class limit for the last class. So I'm going to erase all of these numbers right here. Now, there is two ways to compute in the frequency, but my favorite way of computing the frequency is building a histogram, and I will show you how to do that in a minute. But before that, let me check just to make sure that my computation is correct and I'm not wasting my time just doing something that is not going to work for my homework set. So I'm going to check the first class limit, and I'm going to enter 300 and then comma 349. And let me see what I will get. The answer is correct, so I will proceed with the rest of the rest of my table is correct, and I now need to compute the frequency. To compute the frequency, I will need only the upper class limit, and I will build a histogram. And from the histogram, I will be able to compute the frequencies for each class. So how that is done? First, you're going to go to File, and then you're going to go to Options. And then from Options, you will make sure that you have the add-in necessary to build the histogram. So you click on Add-ins and make sure that Excel add-ins is selected, and you click Go. And then you make sure you check the first box and click OK. That is the tool that you will need. You will notice that when you go to the Data tab, you will find the Data Analysis tool. So those steps made the data analysis appear. Now, to build that histogram, you're going to select the Data Analysis tool. From the Data Analysis tool, you're going to go and select Histogram and click OK. Now, the histogram is going to ask you about the input range. The input range is basically all of the data that you have. So select the data, and then the bin range is the upper class limit. So you're going to click here and then select all of the upper class limit except for the last one because that's not part of it. And then you want the output range to be in this sheet, so select any cell. And then you're going to check the chart output and then click OK. Now you'll notice that you will have the frequency for each class. So the frequency for the first class is 1. Let me just double check to make sure that that is correct. So it is correct, and you keep going. So the second class is 3, the third class is 3, and etc. So let me just double check my answers are correct. So this is how you're going to answer this type of question the fast way, using Excel. Instead of doing it manually, it takes you forever to do it. So this is how you're going to utilize Excel to find a frequency or to construct a group frequency distribution table. I hope this video helped you, and I will see you in a different one.